The topic of today's discussion is teaching poetry. And in today's session, we will go through on our basics and how to teach poetry combined with the probable questions and attempting those questions. Now, when we teach poetry, there's a methodology, there's a model. We attempt it, we perceive it, we teach it through a 3-stage activity: pre-reading stage, while reading stage, and post-reading stage. So you are familiar with this. What's pre-reading stage in poetry? We as teachers try to ignite interest among students in reading poetry. For that, what we do is we pose a question. We talk about the author's background. We share some insight into the context about the poet or the era where he lived in and in what circumstances was this piece of poetry written. We are trying to activate knowledge. Students come with loaded with pre-knowledge, and we are trying to link this. They at least know something. Okay, they already know about the poem subject. They may have known the subject because the poems on such topic might have been read by students in their own language, in native's language. Okay, so there's a probability they might have read or learnt about it, heard about it, heard about the topic. Okay, so there's a chance. In pre-reading activity, we are getting students prepared to further reading, for actual reading of the poem. We pose a question, we share this poet's background, and we actually try to find a link if they have already read such topics or not. Let's discuss one by one in pre-reading stage. Brainstorming. Now, thought clouds is mind mapping, okay, about different ideas. Now we are brainstorming individually, asking individually their opinion and collectively as a group's opinion. Okay, we're brainstorming about the idea given by the topic or about the reflection of the theme from individual perspective and from group's perspective. Okay, we can encourage them to write few lines without actually discussing the poem's content. We can ask them to write what they already know about the poem, or what actually want to know about the poem. Let them predict, let them write few sentences. Okay, this can be done in brainstorming sessions. Okay, you can choose what want to teach, how to go about it. Okay, brainstorming is generating ideas. Okay, prediction. Next, vocabulary building. Now there could be key vocabulary within the poem that students need to know. They need to know essentially, and this vocabulary is what we discuss in our pre-reading activity. Okay, so later on they do not, when they actually go on to undertake the task of actual reading, they do not come across difficulties or challenges. So for that, we need to ensure they are they know about the key vocabulary included in the poem. We can introduce new words from the poem to familiarize. We can explain, we can define, it's okay, but the pattern is not to directly define or discuss, rather give them a context and let them guess the meaning. So this is how we teach vocabulary. Okay, what vocabulary is contextually taught. Okay, so first brainstorming, next is vocabulary. We are teaching them vocabulary, keywords, critical words, main words. Okay, so this is the technique. These all come under pre-reading activity, pre-reading stage. Making predictions. What predictions are we making? Because we have not got into the context, we have not got into the text, we are not actually teaching the poetry. So what clues are they getting? What clues are we expecting from them? We are just expecting them about information that they infer through the topic. Okay, their own personal opinions about the topic, what it could be like. Okay, so यो प्रेडिक्सन चाहिँ हामीले गर्न लगाइन्छ के को बारेमा? अब एक्चुअली पोएम त हामीले पढाउने होइन, त्यहाँ यो प्री रिडिङ स्टेज हो, हामीले टपिक दिन्छ, त्यस्तै टपिक लर्नरले आफ्नो नेटिभ ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा L1 मा जुन पनि हुन सक्छ, अब यहाँ नेप्लिज कन्डिसनमा नेपाली ल्याङ्ग्वेज हुन सक्छ है, उनको अर्को मातृभाषामा पनि हुन सक्छ। सो त्यहाँ त्यो शब्द या त्यहाँ त्यस्तै खालको सिमिलर पोएमहरु पढेको हुन सक्छ, त्यसको बारेमा चाहिँ उसका ओपिनियनहरु, एक्सपिरियन्सेसहरु शेयर गर्न चाहिँ लगाउन सकिन्छ यो प्री रिडिङ एक्टिभिटिजमा। टाइटलले के भन्न खोज्दै छ, के खालको होला यो, यसले के सन्देश दिन खोजेको होला, कस्तो के बारेमा होला यो पोएम भनेर पनि हामी ती कुराहरु चाहिँ विद्यार्थीहरुबाट प्रेडिक्ट गर्न लगाउन चाहिँ सकिन्छ। पोएममा यदि पिक्चर्सहरु छन् भने त्यो भिजुअल प्रम्प्ट्स को रूपमा तिनीहरुले काम गर्छन्, भिजुअल प्रेडिक्सन गर्न चाहिँ लगाउन सकिन्छ। यसले कि यो पिक्चरबाट चाहिँ के सन्देश आइराछ, के खालको बुझाइ हजुरहरुको छ भनेर चाहिँ फेरि सोध्न पनि सकिन्छ। क्वेशनिङ, डाइरेक्ट क्वेशन पनि गर्न सकिन्छ, इन्साइटफुल क्वेशन, इन्ट्रिगिङ क्वेशन्सहरु पनि सोध्न सकिन्छ। यहाँ यो ओभरअल जे गरे पनि हामीले एउटा मात्रै काम गर्दै छौं, प्रेडिक्सन गर्न लगाउँदै छौं। वी आर मेकिङ देम, वी आर आस्किङ देम टु predict about the title or the clues given in the poem. The clues may be visual clues. Okay, so this is the third activity under the heading of pre-reading stage in teaching poetry. Pre-reading का दुई तीन वटा चाहिँ हामीले एक्टिभिटी हेरिसकेपछि while reading मा हामी जान्छौं, तर प्री रिडिङ को हजुरहरुको बुझाइ कतिको छ भन्ने अब यो मैले जान्नको निम्ति हजुरहरुसँग सोधे मैले है। प्री रिडिङमा हजुरहरुले के गराउनुहुन्छ त? आज हामीले उहाँहरुलाई जानकारी, आज हामीले चाहिँ पोएट्रीको बारेमा चाहिँ हेर्दै छौं, त्यसलाई कसरी चाहिँ हामीले त्यो टिचिङ पोएट्री का स्टेजहरु के छन् हैन। यो हामी वाइल रिडिङ स्टेजमा छौं। प्री रिडिङ स्टेजमा केही डिस्कस गरिसकिएको छ, त्यो डिस्कस गरे अनुसार हजुरहरुले त्यस बाहेक प्र्याक्टिस गरेका कुराहरु प्री रिडिङमा के गराउनुहुन्छ, ब्रीफमा, एकदम ब्रीफमा च्याट बक्समा लेख्न सक्नुहुन्छ। च्याट बक्स ओपन छ, हजुरहरुले त्यहाँ लेख्नु भयो भने अगाडि बढ्न सजिलो हुन्छ। अब यही कन्टेन्टबाट फेरि क्वेशन बन्छ के, अब पोएट्रीलाई कसरी एप्रोच, हाउ डु यु एप्रोच टिचिङ पोएट्री भन्ने क्वेशन आउन सक्छ, जेनेरेट हुन सक्छ, यहीबाट जेनेरेट हुन्छ। हेर्नुस्, एक्स्ट्रा क्वेशन कहीं बाहिरबाट आउने होइन, हामीले जे कन्टेन्ट छ त्यसैलाई चाहिँ अलिकति फरक पर्सपेक्टिभबाट एंगल घुमाएर हैन, पेडागोजिकल या क्रिटिकल थिंकिङ या टेक्नोलोजी इंटीग्रेशन का पाटाहरुलाई लिएर क्वेशन चाहिँ बनाएर पस्किने हो, दिने हो, त्यसरी चाहिँ आउने गर्छ है। टक अबाउट द पिक्चर, वी टक अबाउट द टाइटल, वी डिस्कस द टाइटल, वी let our students predict about the title. Very good. स्टेज हो, इनिशियल स्टेज हो, फर्स्ट स्टेज हो, वार्म अप गरिन्छ। अब एक्चुअल रिडिङ तिर विद्यार्थीहरुको इन्ट्रेस्ट चाहिँ जागोस् भनेर हैन, भेरी गुड, एकदम राम्रो छ। अनि मैले अर्को पनि प्रश्न सोध्न चाहे, फिगर्स अफ स्पीच, सिमिले, मेटाफोर एन्ड इमेजरी, सिम्बोलिजम, यो सब यही स्टेजमा पढाउनुहुन्छ कि सिकाउनुहुन्छ कि वाइल रिडिङमा गराउनुहुन्छ कि पोस्ट रिडिङमा गराउनुहुन्छ? कीवर्ड को बारेमा त हामी डिस्कसन गरियो, भोक्याबुलरी को बारेमा हामीले डिस्कसन गरियो, प्री रिडिङ स्टेजको एक्टिभिटी हो यो, प्री टिच द भोक्याबुलरी। अब वाइल रिडिङ स्टेज, रिड अलाउड द पोएम, इन्टरप्ले अफ वर्ड्स हो पोएम। अब एकचोटि रिडिङ गर्ने हो भने थोरै स्टुडेन्ट्स टेक टर्न्स रिडिङ द पोएम अलाउड टु एक्सपिरियन्स इट्स रिदम एन्ड फ्लो। त्यहाँ मिटर छ, त्यहाँ स्ट्रेस्ड अनस्ट्रेस्ड सिलेबलहरूले फिट, मेट्रिकल फिट जेनरेट गरेका हुन्छन्, राइम जेनरेट भइरहेको हुन्छ, रिदम र फ्लो हुन्छ, त्यहाँ चिर परिचित हुन्छन् विद्यार्थी है। सो रिड अलाउड, फर्स्ट थिङ। नेक्स्ट थिङ इज visual imagery. Encourage students to picture the poem's imagery, connecting words to their senses. अब त्यहाँ इमेजरी युज भएको हुन्छ, त्यसले चाहिँ हाम्रो सेन्सलाई इग्नाइट गर्छ है। हाम्रा डिफ्रेन्ट पर्सेप्सन छन् नि, सेन्सरी पर्सेप्सन्सहरू इग्नाइट हुन्छ एकैचोटि। सो visual imagery, if you are asking them to connect these words which ignite the sensory perception, okay, they connect the words to the emotion or the sentiment that the author wants them to connect to. Next is emotional tuning. Discuss the feelings and moods. Okay, feelings and moods evoked by whom? By the poem, not the poet. Okay, by the poem, linking words to emotions. There are words, they not only ignite sensory perception, they also ignite the feelings, the emotions. So what is poetry? Poetry or poem, you may say, is a recreative, imaginative flow or manifestation of language. So through poem, the poet is actually expressing his feelings. Okay. So in while reading stage, these are three, but we shall discuss further in our next slide. First is close reading. What we are doing is analyzing the form of the poem. What's the form? Okay. For example, you could be analyzing this meter, trochaic meter, dactyl, iambic, and rhyming patterns. So you are closely analyzing the form, you dissecting the language, what language choices, what vocabulary has been used, and you are empowering students to interpret lines individually, line by line, not stanza by stanza, just line by line, verse by verse. You're dissecting it. Okay. And allowing students to make their own interpretation. Teaching poetry भित्र अहिले यतिखेर मैले भन्दै गर्दा हामी वाइल रिडिङ स्टेजमा छौं। वाइल रिडिङ स्टेज भित्रको एउटा कुनै एक्टिभिटी के हो त भन्दा अब क्लोज रिडिङ हो, अरु पनि छन्। क्लोज रिडिङ वन बाइ वन चाहिँ हामी डिस्कस गर्दै छौं। अघि हामीले यो सबै कुराहरु भन्यौं। अब फेरि हामी के गर्छौं त भन्दा थोरै विस्तारमा चाहिँ एक एकवटा चाहिँ हामी चर्चा गर्दै छौं। क्लोज रिडिङ एउटा टेक्निक हो जहाँ फर्मलाई चाहिँ एनालाइज गर्ने गरिन्छ, स्टुडेन्ट्सहरुलाई उनीहरुको इन्टरप्रिटेसन लाइन बाइ लाइन एक एकवटा इन्टरप्रिटेसन भन्न लगाउने गर्न चाहिँ सकिन्छ है, गरिन्छ पनि। अनि ल्याङ्ग्वेजलाई पनि हामीले चाहिँ डाइसेक्ट गरेर कस्तो खालको भोक्याबुलरी उहाँको भोक्याबुलरीको चोइस के छ, टोन के छ। बेसिकली टोन त यहाँ आउँदैन, तथापि भोक्याबुलरीको चोइसको कुरा चाहिँ हामीले गर्छौं। हस् त अब यो अर्को पनि स्लाइड हेरौं। अब एनोटेसन। अब एनोटेसन भनेको अब बेसिकली एनओटी बाट नोट गर्नु मेन पोइन्ट। यही एनओटी बाट फेरि NOTICE नोटिस पनि गर्नु, नोट पनि गर्नु, नोटिस पनि गर्नु, दुईटा कुराहरू हुन्छ। महत्त्वपूर्ण कुराहरूलाई नोट गर्नु अनि धेरै कुराहरू, अन्य कुराहरू, की आइडियाजहरू लगायतका कुराहरू, कन्सेप्टका कुराहरू, थीमका कुराहरू फेरि नोटिस पनि गर्नु भनेको हो। यो एनोटेसनको दुईटै हुन्छ, नोट र नोटिस दुईटै हुन्छ है। एनोटेसनमा हामीले थीमको हाइलाइट गरिन्छ, के थीमको कुन थीममा चाहिँ त्यो लेखिएको छ, पोखिएको छ है। अनि रिदमिक प्याटर्न्सहरूलाई हामी चाहिँ नोट गर्छौँ, सिम्बोलिजम त्यहाँ के छ है, त्यो कुराहरू हेर्छौँ हामीले। यति कुराहरू छ एनोटेसनबाट, नोट र नोटिस त्यो छ है। डिस्कसन वाइल रिडिङमा अर्को के हो त भन्दा अर्को एक्टिभिटी डिस्कसन। नेक्स्ट इज डिस्कसन। Engage students in sharing how the poem personally resonates with their experiences. Does it connect them to their own personal life experience? Have they felt as the author felt? जसरी अथरले चाहिँ फिल गरिरहेछ त्यसरी पनि केही विद्यार्थीहरू त्यहाँ भित्र भएको मासमा कसै कुनै न कुनै ऑडियन्सले त्यसरी फिल गरेको हुन सक्छ। पर्सनल एक्सपिरियन्सेसहरू, पर्सनल रिजोनेन्सहरू, पर्सनल कनेक्टिभिटी, पर्सनल लिङ्केजका बारेमा चाहिँ सोध्न र डिस्कस गर्न चाहिँ लगाउन सकिन्छ। डाइभर्स भ्यूज यसो गर्दै गर्दाखेरि अर्को डाइभर्स भ्यूजहरू पनि आउँछन्। एउटाले मेरो जीवनको घटनासँग या चाहिँ मैले सोच्दै गरेको कुराहरूसँग मेल खान्छ भन्ने कुराहरू राख्न सक्छ, अर्कोले फेरि अर्कै तरिकाले चाहिँ आफ्नो भ्यूजहरू दिने त्यसरी चाहिँ डाइभर्स भ्यूजहरू आउँछन् है। क्रिएट अ स्पेस फर भेरिड इन्टरप्रिटेसन। अब डेफिनेटली भन्यो नि त, यो गर्दै जाँदा पर्सनली सोध्दै जाँदा अब धेरै मासमा अब 4-5 जना समयले भ्याउँदै जान्छ, जति धेरै पनि हुन सक्छ, जतिजना हुन्छन् जो अलि डाइभर्स भ्यूज चाहिँ आउँछ, 5, 7, 8, 10 वटा भ्यूजहरू हैन चाहिँ आउँछ, डाइभर्स भ्यूज आउँछ यो गर्दै जाँदा पनि। दिस डाइभर्स भ्यूज acknowledges the subjective nature of poetry. Through diverse views, what we are doing is personal interpretation. We are asking them their own personal interpretation. You're just not asking one student in the class. You're taking the opinions of different students. So you get diverse views, diverse interpretations. Critical thinking. Why has author written so? In what context? For what audience? Who are the characters involved? What characters are involved? Who is omitted? What are the objects omitted? Critical thinking. Okay, so what is its immediate meaning? What is its underlying meaning? What do I feel about it? What do I understand about it? What do others understand about it? What's their feeling? What's my personal feeling? Critical thinking. Critical thinking. यी कुराहरू चाहिँ आउँछन्। पोएट्री डिस्कसन गरिसकेपछि यसको लास्टमा पोएट्रीसँग सम्बन्धित एउटा क्वेशन पनि छ। त्यो क्वेशन पनि फेरि डिस्कस गरिसकेपछि हामीले अस्तिको एस्सेको एउटा क्वेशन त्यो पनि डिस्कस गर्ने छौं है। पोस्ट रिडिङ एक्टिभिटीज। नाउ एज वी हैव डिस्कस्ड वाइल रिडिङ एक्टिभिटीज, हजुरले वाइल रिडिङ एक्टिभिटीजमा सबभन्दा एकदमै हजुरलाई मन पर्ने के एक्टिभिटी गराउनुहुन्छ या कुन एक्टिभिटी गराउनुहुन्छ जसले गर्दा विद्यार्थी अझै चाहिँ त्यो पोएट्रीमा चाहिँ एकदमै इन्ट्रेस्ट लिएर चाहिँ पार्टिसिपेट गर्ने त्यस्ता के एक्टिभिटीजहरू छन्? प्लिज कमेन्ट है, कमेन्ट गर्नुस्। I know you have been in this profession for so long. You have been teaching this from ages, and you have your own techniques. So what techniques do you deploy in while reading stage of poetry? What are your personal techniques or activities? There could be techniques that we discussed. If your technique is amongst what we have discussed here, please, you can please mention that too. Okay, do not hesitate. There's nothing there to hesitate. So in this 3-stage activity, the final one is post-reading activity. Okay, in post-reading activity, what's the objective? Can you tell me the objective of this post-reading activity? Reflective analysis. In post-reading, what's post-reading stage about? Reinforcing the knowledge. Okay, making the knowledge concrete. We are discussing poetry. In poetry, the post-reading activity include reflective analysis. Analyze how the poem's themes reflect broader societal issues or personal values. Many poets might have raised the societal cause. Their poem could be a reflection of how they feel about the society, how they feel about the era or the different context ranging from cultural to political. Okay, so it's a broader reflective analysis can be done in this post-reading activity about how the poems theme reflect it. Next is interpretive essays. Poem, then you can move on to essay on the similar theme and assign essays that allow for a deep dive into the interpretation of the poem. Okay, there could be various other essays on the same theme that the poem is discussing. Theme could be similar. You can ask them to read that particular essay, okay, so that they further enhance their knowledge. Performance. Have students perform or recite the poem to capture its emotional and dramatic elements. If there's something to dramatize in the poem, then you can ask them to dramatize the poem. It is indeed a good activity. Through this, they will have deeper understanding when they act out. When they perform live or before the class and the actors themselves both can enjoy it. While it becomes enjoyable, the knowledge also becomes concrete. Take a look how deep analysis is done. It isn't necessary to discuss the metaphor and similes. For example, these are the poetic devices. It is not necessary to discuss these in post-reading stage. You can discuss these in pre-reading stage, so they do not have difficulty in making meaning out of it while they actually read. Okay, and further, since after having them read the poem, again you can discuss. There's no problem. Okay, there is no certain rule that poetic devices have to be discussed only after reading the poem. No, as you know that key vocabulary is discussed in pre-reading activity. Similarly, figures of speech or poetic devices can also be discussed before actually reading the poem. So in this stage, we discuss literary devices. We discuss about the structure. We can dissect the stanzas into lines, and line by line, what we can do is dissect the stanzas, line breaks, and caesars that contribute to the poem's impact. Okay, what makes poem impactful? We can dissect those particular lines within the stanza. If there are many stanzas, and there could be lines which are more impactful than others. Just pick out or dissect those or discuss those. This can be done, okay, because they signify a greater impact. You can do it. Historical context, historical backdrop that influences the themes and reception of the poem. This is what we have already discussed. Okay, we can discuss it again in post-reading stage. Now, creative response. You can ask them to expand the poem, stretch the poem. Okay, they can start from where the poem ends. Okay, they can start from where the poem ends. They can write 1 or 2 stanzas more. You can spur the creativity amongst the students in post reading stage. Okay, so that is how you inspire creativity. As you know that the students of current generation like this pop song and rap songs. To make it more interesting, after having read the poem, you can ask your students to sing this poem in rap style. Okay, that will make them enjoyable while also ensuring that they learn the motive or the objective or the knowledge when they go back home. Okay, while they make it enjoyable, while they actually find it interesting, you can also make sure that they at least take the message of the poem when it's done. Can make it enjoyable plus knowledgeable. Comparative study. Please take a look. In this post reading stage, we can ask them to compare the difference they find in different literary genre. You know that poem violates the grammatical structure. When you ask them to make a comparison, they can figure it out themselves. Poem naturally includes more use of metaphorical language, this poetic devices, than any other genre. They can figure it out from what? When they compare it. Okay, so this can be done. Comparative study can be done. Reflective dialogue, emotional journey, and how personal relevant was the poem, how did it connect to their own life experiences, how did it resonate with their lives, and what was the growth and learning curve for them emotionally, sentimentally, and all about that. Okay, you know this poem has message, so what skills and message that did they get, how did it connect to them? Can ask them to write about this, and this can be under reflective dialogue. Okay, next conclusion. Pre, while, and post reading technique provides a comprehensive framework for teaching poetry. Whether it gives or not, whether it gives comprehensive framework or not is not an issue. You need to have one method to teach poetry. If you are asked, you need to have one method. We are teaching from this examination perspective. Okay, these are very sweet words. Whether or not this touches you, it's different thing. What you need to have is, you need to have one method to teach poetry. You need to have a method to teach essay, drama, short story, reading, writing, listening, speaking. That is why we are teaching these methodologies, techniques, activities. You need to have at least one. It enriches the learning experiences by facilitating active engagement, critical analysis, and personal growth. In pre-reading stage, you're warming them, you're getting them, you're making them prepared for actual reading stage. Okay, brainstorming ideas, and making them predict about the titles is what we do. In while reading stage, we ask them to summarize. We can actually uh, we can take their personal understanding. We can ask them for their superficial meaning, okay, deeper understanding. Critical analysis is what next comes, and about personal growth, how they reflect personally, how does it resonate with their personal lives, is what we do in post reading stage. So this is what we have from conclusion. Now moving on to next recap. It involves 3 stages already discussed: discussing controversial topics, predicting poems content, discussion of vocabulary, sampling random lines from the poem, listening to anecdotes, that means personal experiences, is done in pre-reading stage. While reading stage, we read one verse at a time and predict next what's coming. We do these all: underline the words and guess the metaphorical meaning, read the poem and identify true false statement. We do this. And in post reading stage, we have group interpretation. We can dramatize the poem, we can make the poem, ask students extend the poem, okay, making the poem a rap song or a pop song, continue the poem from where it ends. This is what we have discussed already. Discussing controversial statements about the poem, their own personal reflection, rewriting the poem, removing few stanzas and making them right, okay. This is different from this, okay. And this, what we do is we let the original poem as it is and we continue from where it ends. And in rewriting the poem, what we do is we remove few stanzas and ask them to fill in those stanzas by their own creativity. We compare the poem with other literary text or genre. So this is what we do in post-reading stage. Now on to most important thing, probable question. So this is what I was, okay, this question is what you may be asked in the examination. Poetry is rich with various literary devices. How would you teach students to analyze and appreciate the use of poetic devices such as metaphors, similes, and symbolism in a poem? Provide a specific example and outline your teaching approach. Now, here what you have to discuss is, now you have to discuss here the poetic devices. You need to make sure that poem deviates from the normal grammatical structure. There are poetic devices, okay. You need to make sure this, you have to include this. This is the first part. This is where you start your answer with. This is how you attempt with, okay. First thing first. Now you are making students analyze the poem and appreciate the poem. Appreciate the poem through what? Through metaphors, this and this, okay. Now here, analyze means what? Critically analyze the poem, how it connects to the theme, what message does it give, what the different lines indicate, and so on. How what's the symbolic meaning and all that. How do you teach this to students? How do you make them analyze this? This is the second part, okay. It's about making students, teaching students to analyze this particular part, okay. Poetic devices, and through the use of this poetic devices, you have to ensure your students may appreciate or criticize. Provide a specific example and outline your teaching approach. First what, next what, next what. Organize, you have to organize your approach to teaching poetry. Okay, so this is the question. Question is about teaching metaphors, these poetic devices. Teaching, what is the question? About teaching these poetic devices, and through the use of these poetic devices, making them analyze, appreciate, or criticize the text. Sorry, the message of the poem. Okay, so this is what is the question. So keywords. Initially, you have to discuss that there are various poetic devices or literary devices used in poetry. Give examples, define them, explain it, ask them where have they found these devices used in the text elsewhere, if such devices are used in their own native language or not. Let's actually have a look at one possible answer. Okay, possible answer. In teaching students to analyze and appreciate poetic devices like metaphors, similes, imagery, etc., it is best to employ an interactive approach that combines theoretical understanding with practical exploration. Okay, theoretical explanation is given, and while they practice this theory into creativity. How can you do this? Introduction and interactive discussion is first what you are going to do. Okay, my approach you have to write, because it is your approach has been asked, so you can write this way. My approach to teaching poetic device is given below, or is as such, or follows the following outline. Okay, introduction and interactive discussion. First of all, you are going to introduce the poetic devices. What you are going to do is introduce the poetic devices first, define them, explain them. Now have them discuss about it. Have they found these devices used in poetry elsewhere or in their own native language or not? Make their personal experiences count. Okay, have they found this in their own culture, where they have this cultural songs? Is it used in any everyday language? Is it used in music? Okay, from here what you are garnering is you are getting their own experience, whether or not they have been whether or not they have seen or not. Okay, you are getting an idea. If they reply that they haven't found such text, then you have to adopt another strategy. If they reply, most of the students reply that they have found these poetic devices used in their own language, in poetry, or in cultural different cultural aspects, then they are already familiar. Through this, what you are doing is making them familiar about poetic devices in poem. Number one. Next is group activities. You give them few poems or a poem, divide them in group, ask the group to find these poetic devices. What you are doing through this is teamwork, learning, fostering teamwork. That means if one member amongst a group is finding it hard to identify metaphor, simile, or imagery, the other in the group will help him out. From group activity, we can, this this is another activity which can be utilized to help your students, those who are weak or poor, understand the poetic devices, okay, through this teamwork. Next is, since we attempted the first part, that was to introduce poetic devices. Next is, what we are doing is, through the use of these poetic devices, the question has asked, how do you analyze and let your students appreciate? This is how we are going to do. Students are next guided through a step-by-step analysis, breaking down the verses. Now you break down the verse to lines, okay, or you're breaking down the stanza to identify and discuss the purpose of metaphors. Remember, we discussed impact line. हामीले इम्प्याक्ट लाइनको बारेमा अघि भर्खरै कुरा गरिसकेका छौं। यहाँ हामीले के गर्छौं त भन्दा स्ट्यान्जाहरूलाई लाइन बाइ लाइन हेर्छौं, इम्प्याक्ट धेरै प्रभाव पार्ने लाइनहरूलाई लाइन बाइ लाइन हामीले ती लाइनहरूको छनौट गरेर हामीले त्यहाँ भित्र दिइएका मेटाफोर र सिमिलेहरूलाई एनालाइज गर्न थाल्छौं र त्यसरी चाहिँ सिकाउँछौं है, आइडेन्टिफाइङ those lines or dissecting those lines, right? Students are encouraged to express their interpretation, promoting critical thinking. अब यहाँ चाहिँ फेरि के हुन्छ, नेक्स्ट हामीले के गर्छौं, लाइन आइडेन्टिफाई गरिसकेपछि अब पर्सनल इन्टरप्रिटेसन दिनुस् भनेर सबैलाई लगाउन सकिन्छ। इन डेप्थ एनालाइसिस आउँछ, डिफरेन्ट डाइभर्स भ्यूजहरु आउँछ, सबैले एकै तरिकाले त सोच्दैन, डाइभर्स भ्यूज आउँछ, कसैले क्रिटिसाइज गर्छ, कसैले एप्रिशिएट गर्छ, अनि यो गलत भने यस्तो कहाँ हुन्छ भनेर भन्छ, आफ्नो इन्टरप्रिटेसन निस्किन्छन्, अनि क्रिटिकली एनालाइसिसको पाटो कभर भयो कि भएन, त यो त भयो नि त, यसरी है ग्रुपमा डिभाइड गर्ने, स्ट्यान्जालाई डाइसेक्ट गर्ने, लाइनहरु लिने, इम्प्याक्टफुल लाइन, त्यहाँ प्रयोग भएका मेटाफोर सिमिलेजहरु लिने, अनि विद्यार्थीहरुलाई के गर्न लगाउने त भन्दा इन्टरप्रिटेसन, पर्सनल इन्टरप्रिटेसन गर्न लगाउने। यति गरिसकेपछि अब लास्ट पार्टमा हामी जान्छौं, क्रिएटिभ राइटिङ एक्सरसाइजेस। अब एनालाइज गर्न लगाइयो, एनालाइज गर्न लगाइसकेपछि अब कहिलेकाहीँ त्यसैलाई घुमाएर एप्रिशिएट कसरी गर्न लगाउने भन्ने कुराहरु आउन सक्छ। अब एप्रिशिएट कुनै पोएमको एप्रिसिएसनको बारेमा लेख्न पर्यो भने त्यो appreciating the poem भयो, appreciate, criticize, analyze भन्ने सबै कुराहरु आउँछन्। अब कसरी गर्ने त भन्दा is done by asking create their own poems incorporating metaphor। विद्यार्थीहरुलाई त्यहाँ दिइएका मेटाफोरहरु प्रयोग गरेर आफ्नो पोएम बनाउनुहोस् भनेर लगाइयो भने विद्यार्थीहरुको क्रिएटिभिटी पनि यही आउँछ, यहीबाट उनीहरुले चाहिँ गर्न सक्छन्। अब यो प्र्याक्टिकल एक्टिभिटी हो, ह्यान्ड्स अन एक्टिभिटी भन्छ यसलाई, एक्सपेरिमेन्ट हुने भयो, एक्सप्लोरेसन हुने भयो कि भएन, पोएटिक डिभाइसेसहरुसँगको ह्यान्ड्स अन एक्सपिरियन्स हुने भयो, प्र्याक्टिकल एक्सपिरियन्स हुने भयो, एक्सप्लोरेसन हुने भयो, क्रिएटिभिटी निस्किने भयो। जब ती मेटाफोरहरु आफूले प्रयोग गर्छन् भने पोएटले कसरी चाहिँ पोएटको एप्रिसिएसन पनि उनीहरु गर्न थाल्छन् फेरि है, deepening their understanding through practical application। so this is यो अर्को चाहिँ गर्न लगाउन सकिन्छ भनेर अब यो हेडिङ चाहिँ राख्ने, क्रिएटिभ राइटिङ एक्सरसाइज फर स्टुडेन्ट्स युजिङ द मेटाफोर्स गिवन इन द पोएम टु क्रिएट देयर ओन पोएम। क्लास प्रेजेन्टेसन, फाइनली स्टुडेन्ट्सहरुले बनाइसकेपछि आफ्ना क्रिएटिभ पोएमहरु क्लासको अगाडि प्रेजेन्ट गरेपछि धेरै धेरै भर्जनहरु आउँछ। एउटा स्टुडेन्टको पोएमको एउटा भर्जन आउँछ, अर्को स्टुडेन्टको अर्को भर्जन आउँछ, मेटाफोर र सिमिलेजहरु त्यही प्रयोग गरे हुन्छन्, तर पनि आफ्ना डिफरेन्ट पोएम्सहरु आउँछन् नि त त्यहीबाट, एउटै थीममा क्रिएटिभ फरक फरक क्रिएटिभिटीबाट फरक फरक डाइभर्स टोनका साथ पोएमहरु या थोरै फरक लेखाइका साथ पोएमहरु आउँछन्। अब त्यहाँबाट के हुन्छ त भन्दा क्रिएटिभ पोएम्सहरु आइसकेपछि we can explain or they can present why they have deliberately used these poetic devices। डेलिबरेटली यो पोएटिक डिभाइसेसहरु युज गर्नाले फाइदा के भयो त भन्ने कुराहरु उहाँ एक्सप्लेन गर्छन् सबै अगाडि आएर यसरी प्रेजेन्टेसन दिइसकेपछि अनि त्यो अन्डरस्ट्यान्डिङ चाहिँ डिपर हुन्छ नलेज त हुन्छ नै ती पोएटिक डिभाइसेसहरुको युज त्यसलाई कसरी अध्ययन गर्ने एनालाइज गर्ने त्यसलाई कसरी चाहिँ राइटरले कहाँ कुन परिवेशमा युज गरेको छ त्यसलाई चाहिँ एप्रिसिएट गर्न पनि जान्ने हुन्छन् यहाँ चाहिँ यतिमा एन्सर सकिन्छ यति कुराहरु चाहिँ लेख्ने कहाँबाट सुरुवात गर्ने त भन्दा पहिला हामी इन्ट्रोडक्सनबाट सुरुवात गर्ने एन्ड इन्टरएक्टिभ डिस्कसन मेटाफोर्स सिमिलेज अब पोएटिक डिभाइसेसहरुको इन्ट्रोडक्सन दिएर एक्सप्लेन गरेर उनीहरुको चाहिँ यस्ता देखेका छन् कि छैनन् भनेर उनका पर्सनल ओपिनियनहरु लिने फर्स्ट इन्ट्रोडक्सन एन्ड इन्टरएक्टिभ डिस्कसन यो लेख्ने यो क्वेशनको पोसिबल एन्सरमा पहिलो यो माथि भूमिका बाँधेको कुराहरु हुन् अब यो आफ्नो भाषामा लेख्न सकिन्छ अब यो हेडिङहरु राखेर चाहिँ आफ्नो चाहिँ फेरि बनाउन पनि सकिन्छ है त्यो गर्ने त्यसपछि ग्रुप एक्टिभिटी एउटा गराउन सकिन्छ ग्रुप एक्टिभिटी यहाँ भनिसकेपछि ग्रुप एक्टिभिटी नलेखे पनि त्यति साह्रै नम्बर चाहिँ काटिदैन यो चाहिँ एकदमै एउटा चाहिँ टाइटल जहाँ चाहिँ इन्ट्रोडक्सनको कुरो आओस् त्यो थीमको कुरो आओस् त्यो चाहिँ लेख्नै पर्छ नम्बर 2 के रे नम्बर 1 मा नम्बर 2 मा चाहिँ हामीले इन डेप्थ एनालाइसिस भनेको छ नि हाउ डु यु टीच टु एनालाइज भनेर यहाँ चाहिँ क्वेशनमा छ यो पाटो अब यो पाटो चाहिँ गर्नको लागि चाहिँ इन डेप्थ एनालाइसिस कसरी सिकाइन्छ भने यो हेडिङ चाहिँ सब हेडिङ चाहिँ राख्नै पर्छ अनि त्यसपछि आफ्नो स्ट्र्याटेजी यहाँ डिस्कस गर्ने थर्ड मा चाहिँ अब त्यसैलाई चाहिँ क्रिएटिभ राइटिङ मार्फत यसरी गराएर यसरी प्रेजेन्ट गर्न सकिन्छ भनेर राखेपछि एन्सर चाहिँ एक खाली एन्सर चाहिँ बन्छ यो है